The myth of the open title. Why 2026 was decided the moment Marc bent metal, the question that should never have been asked. They keep asking the wrong question. Will Marc Márquez still be the 2026 title favorite after the shoulder injury? That question alone exposes the delusion. It assumes MotoGP works like a spreadsheet. It assumes bodies decay faster than intent. It assumes dominance is fragile. Marc Márquez does not operate inside those assumptions. He never has. When the grid talks about injuries, they talk about loss. Marc talks about adjustment. When riders fear metal inside the body, Marc treats it like reinforcement. And when the paddock whispers doubt, Ducati listens to one man, Luigi Dall'Igna, because Gigi has seen something the rest of the sport refuses to process. Marc Márquez is not dangerous because he is fast. He is dangerous because he does not need ideal conditions to dominate. The injury in Indonesia didn't weaken the system. It exposed it. Indonesia was not an accident. It was a filter. Indonesia 2025, a collision with Marco Bezzecchi, a shoulder impact, a bent screw, a reminder of Jerez 2020. The paddock froze because Jerez 2020 is the trauma MotoGP never healed from. That crash almost ended the sport's most violent era. It reshaped careers. It rewrote caution into rider DNA. So when news broke that Marc needed surgery again, the grid reacted instinctively. Fear, not concern, not empathy. Fear. Because MotoGP has only one defense mechanism against Marc Márquez: time. They hope age slows him. They hope injuries accumulate. They hope the body betrays the mind. Indonesia threatened that hope. And then Marc did the worst possible thing for his rivals. He slowed down, not because he couldn't rush recovery, but because he no longer needs to prove invincibility. That evolution is lethal. The reckless Marc scared riders. The patient Marc ends careers. Gigi spoke. The title race ended. When Luigi Dall'Igna was asked if Marc would be a favorite for 2026, he didn't hedge. He didn't protect PR. He didn't dilute language. He said, honestly, I see him doing well. That word matters. Honestly. In MotoGP, honesty is rare, especially from architects of dominant systems. Dall'Igna has overseen multiple title fights, internal Ducati implosions, riders crushed by expectation, champions exposed by comparison. He does not speak casually. When Gigi says Marc is already loading the shoulder, normally he is not talking about fitness. He is talking about trust. Trust in structural integrity, neuromuscular response, feedback, precision, psychological equilibrium. Marc is already behaving like a rider, preparing for domination, not recovery. And Ducati knows the difference. This is why the factory is calm, not optimistic, not hopeful. Calm, because they have already run the scenarios. But this is where the entire story snaps. The injury does not threaten Marc's title defense. It threatens everyone else's narrative. MotoGP survives on perspective. The illusion that gaps are shrinking, that this year is different, that multiple riders are close. Marc's absence temporarily supports that illusion. Aprilia looks faster. KTM looks competitive. Ducati politics feel manageable. But those gains only exist in a vacuum. Insert Marc back into the system and the illusion collapses. Because Marc does not just add speed, he redefines the reference. And when the reference shifts, everyone else loses ground instantly. And when Jorge Martin is named Martinator for Saturday fireworks and a single title, the sport applauds noise and calls it legacy. Short races, clean air, controlled chaos. Then Marc Márquez rolls out. Not a nickname, not a marketing hook. A machine built from titanium, steel, scar tissue, and memory. No tears, no speeches, no explanations. While others celebrate sprint crowns, Marc stalks the full distance. While the grid talks about pain, Marc recalibrates it. While rivals chase moments, he engineers collapse. This is not a rider returning from injury. This is the Terminator walking back into a room that already knows how the story ends. The damage won't be loud, it will be internal. The preseason psychological assault, why naming rivals is not respect. It is war. Marc Márquez named his opponents for 2026. Bezzecchi, Alex Marquez, Francesco Bagnaia, Pedro Acosta. The media framed this as humility. It isn't. It's a trap. Marc does this every time he wants to destabilize the grid before a wheel turns. By naming rivals, he elevates expectation, forces comparison, shifts pressure forward. Now, every one of those riders must justify their inclusion. Every test time is judged. Every race win is minimized. Every mistake is magnified. Marc absorbs nothing. The burden moves outward. Dismantling the threats without mercy, Marco Bezzecchi fast when free, explosive when confident, but emotionally reactive. Bezzecchi can win races when chaos aligns. He cannot survive a 9-month psychological siege. Marc will let him shine early, then suffocate him slowly. That pattern is old. The outcome is fixed. Alex Marquez, the most misunderstood name on the list. He finished P2 in 2025 for a reason: consistency, mechanical sympathy, mental stability. But Alex's ceiling exists because Marc exists. He does not race to dethrone Marc. He races to coexist with him. That is not how championships are taken. Francesco Bagnaia, 2-time champion, system rider, precision-dependent, rhythm-reliant. Marc destroys rhythm, not by speed, by unpredictability. When Marc changes pace mid-race, Bagnaia recalculates. By the time the calculation finishes, the race is gone. This is not a talent gap, it is a reaction gap, and reaction gaps kill title defenses. Pedro Acosta, the future weapon, raw aggression, fearless commitment. But Acosta is still learning how to lose. Marc mastered losing years ago. That difference matters. Acosta can win Sundays, Marc wins seasons. Everything you thought you understood stops working here. MotoGP believes injuries level the field. They don't. They expose dependency. Riders who rely on perfect feel collapse when compromised. Riders who rely on instinct adapt. Marc is pure adaptation. The injury does not slow him. It strips away everyone else's excuses. Jorge Lorenzo's misread, losing something, is not a disadvantage. Jorge Lorenzo suggested Marc will lose something after the injury. He's right, Marc will lose something. He always does. What Lorenzo misunderstands is what Marc replaces it with. When Marc lost peak arm strength, he gained braking precision, line economy, tactical aggression. When Marc lost invincibility, he gained patience, race IQ, psychological leverage. Marc does not regress. He reallocates. That is why injuries never remove him from contention. They reshape the weapon. Defending Marc is the real problem. Marc Márquez chasing a title is dangerous. Marc Márquez defending a title is catastrophic. Because when Marc defends, risk becomes selective. Mistakes reduce pressure. Compounds rivals don't just chase points, they chase validation. And Marc denies them that too. History is unambiguous. When Marc enters a season as the reference, the grid fractures by mid-year. Not violently, quietly. The only time alignment exists, absence, everything lines up when Marc is gone. Aprilia looks ready, KTM believes, Yamaha dreams, Marc returns and alignment collapses. Because he pulls tires beyond theory, extracts grip where data says none exists, turns damage limitation into wins, first place, not second, not podium survival, first, and now the part nobody is ready for. 2026 is not the end game. 2027 is. 850cc, equal spec, Michelin exits. MotoGP believes the reset will save careers. Marc treats resets like hunting grounds. Every regulation change in modern MotoGP has favored adaptability. Violence over smoothness, instinct over comfort. If Marc enters 2027 as defending champion, the sport loses its final excuse. Because then it isn't the bike, it isn't Michelin, it isn't circumstance. It's him. Why Gigi is calm and others aren't. Luigi Dall'Igna is calm because he has already seen this movie. Injured Marc? Doubted Marc, written off Marc. The ending never changes. The grid adapts to Marc. Marc adapts to nothing. The myth is not Marc. The myth is the Open Championship. They will win races. They will steal headlines. They will enjoy moments. They will not take a championship from a defending Marc Márquez because he is not built from bone anymore. He is built from steel plates, titanium screws, institutional memory, psychological dominance. Kings do not fear injury. They fear replacement. Marc Márquez has never been replaceable. Marc Márquez doesn't need branding. He is what remains after the grid is processed, filtered, and broken down by pressure. No crying, no fading, no mercy. Just titanium under leather, steel in the shoulder, and silence in the garage when the numbers stop making sense. Because everyone competes. Champions collect titles. But Terminators don't compete. They end cycles. And when the season closes, the grid won't remember the pain. It will remember the inevitability. GP24 doesn't cover MotoGP. We document its wars. Subscribe and enlist.